Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. I let the intro that Blog Talk Radio does do its thing before I jumped in over it. How are you, everyone? This is Tom Hayes on a beautiful February morning in Templeton, Massachusetts. Previously, I'm my Boston area. We're going to have a great show today. I got a wonderful woman from England going to talk to us about the teenage girls and the crisis in the COVID era. I'll give you a quick introduction. Jane is a powerhouse on the female empowerment stage. If the subject is gender-related, you want to join Jane and her team on her platform. Her credibility and validity in this space is unquestionable and unrivaled. She is charismatic, mesmerizing, and an entertaining speaker, intuitive coach, facilitator, author, podcaster, and media lovey. As an entrepreneur, she is fearless, and her passion and resilience has been tested many times. Her work supporting vulnerable teenage girls via her social enterprise, Girls Out Loud, is admirable. She is described by her peers as a game changer, a visionary, and a trailblazer. To say she rocks is an understatement. For the past 20-plus years, she has worked in the personal development area. 15 of these exclusively with women and teenage girls, helping them find their voice, harness their gumption, step up and shine. So let's see if Jane has not arrived yet. Oh my goodness. Well, before she gets here, I want to give my 2 cents on all of that. First of all, I'm a father of 2 daughters and a stepdaughter, who I think I've done extremely well in my guidance and my devotion to them, their personal development and time, effort, whatever, and have seen 3 ladies blossom in a way that I'm extremely proud of, not only because they are happy, but also because of what they contribute to the world. They're raising, at this present time, 5 beautiful children that are happy and loving. And they've found personal development in there. Oh, there she is. Hello. Wonderful. Let's do this. Jane. Wait, hang on.
Hello.
Jane, you're here.
I am here. How are you?
It is so great to hear your voice after so many years.
I know. How long is it?
Oh, it's wonderful. And I had a fabulous chat with your hubby just a bit ago. And he told me it was nice because we got a description of the landscape in England right now during all of this. How's it going? I mean, it was pretty bleak. How is it still pretty tight over there?
Yes, pretty bleak. It is pretty bleak. It's just we don't really know what's happening. You get different stories from different people. There's no continuity. There's no leadership at the very top. It's a mess, really. It's a mess. So we're all just trying to be good citizens and do what we're told, and some of us are, some of us aren't.
Yeah, exactly. One harrowing experience was the fact that your neighbors had been robbed and nobody showed up, and yet the contrast is he can be pulled over for going to the grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to prove where you're going. It's like, well, what am I living in here? 1984, police state.
Well, exactly.
But it can only get better. It can only get better. Is it not like that where you are then? Is it more relaxed?
It's starting to lighten up a little bit, yes.
Yeah.
They've seen, it's hard to tell what works and doesn't work, but it appears that if we do keep people away from each other, then the incidence goes down, which only makes sense. So the incidence has really gone down, and so they're starting to release, some of the restrictions. But, the key word you just said that I'd like to, I just gave you a nice introduction. I took it off your website so people know at this point what you're involved with. I don't know how many. I think we had a couple of podcasts that we did together, but I always talk about you because your story is just something I've gotten into some classic literature recently, and
Mhm.
Charles Dickens. I mean, you have a story that is worthy of a Charles Dickens novel,
Oh,
and
do I? That's a bit
I
worrying.
mean, really, when you think of the dynamic of what you went through, and I don't know how much of that
Yeah.
you want to share today, but the crisis of having to go out on your own. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
when the things I just read about you've lived. I mean,
Mhm.
you went out into the world alone. You were cut off from your family.
Mm.
And then you rose to the highest of heights in terms of what we would consider modern day a success and
Mm.
achievement. And then through health crises, decided that you were actually forced to take a different tack and
Mm.
realize
Mm.
there's much more than what the eye sees in terms of reaching personal development. And
Well,
so if you want
I
to pick it up,
think
go
I
ahead.
now kind of talk about my life in three acts because I don't think we all do the same thing for all of our life. I think we have critical moments, and in those critical moments, we self-reflect and we think, okay, is my intuition telling me something here? Do I need to step back and get off this for a moment and see where the next act is? And I've done that three times, and maybe I'll do it a fourth. Who knows? But the first time I did that was when I came to reach the heights of corporate success. In my late 20s, I had the big job, the corner office, the nice expenses account, the big budget, the team, the place around the board table. And, I'd done that in 10 years from being left at 16 alone and broke. I just literally became a workaholic. And I was on this mission to prove that I was worth something because I'd been made to feel completely worthless in the way I was treated when I was a teenager. So it was like I was on this mission. So my first act was to prove that I was worthy, and to kind of show my father in particular that I didn't need his money, that I could make my own. And so I did that all through my 20s and literally got to about 28, 29, hit the top, couldn't go any further, had more qualifications than hot meals, and thought, what do I do now? Where do I go next? And then I nearly had I probably had a mini breakdown because I was so stressed. I stopped. I couldn't get any more qualified, and I couldn't climb the ladder anymore, and so I stopped. And at that point that I stopped, I got ill. And I think that happens to a lot of people. When you actually stop climbing and you stop working and you allow yourself space, you get ill. It's why lots of people get ill over Christmas, because Christmas is when they switch off. It's why lots of people get ill on their way to their holidays, because they've switched off. And so I did that big time because I'd not switched off for 10 years. And so I then was forced to think about, well, I can't really go back to that job. I can't really go back working 60, 70-hour weeks like that. I need to think about what my next act is. And so then I moved into entrepreneurship, working for myself. And again, I did that. That was my second act as a serial entrepreneur. And I did that for a good 10, 12 years. Made lots of money, lost lots of money, did that twice. Was a millionaire twice and nearly bankrupt twice. Learned lots of things about myself. Had 12 businesses in that time. Some I bought, some I developed, some I sold, some I nearly lost, some I never should have touched with a barge pole. And so I had a really kind of emotional roller coaster of a journey. But I always say that I would never change any of that. I would never change any of my backstory because it makes me who I am, doesn't it? I wouldn't be who I am without any of it. So, so I then kind of became burnt out by all of that. And then, interestingly enough, when I was 36, I met Tony, my now husband, and my life changed again. So now I'm in another act. So I've done the first act, I've done the second act, and he comes along and it's like, well, change all of that, thanks very much. And so I took some time out to sort of spend some time with him, and I did that self-reflective process again. Do I want to be doing this the rest of my life? Actually, no. I now need to find something that makes my heart sing, that's cause-driven, that is about making a difference, that's a legacy, that I can leave something and people will know I've been here. There's a footprint. And so that's my third act, which I'm now in. So I'm now in the business of inspiring teenage girls to step up and shine and be their best version of themselves and pick up the baton that the women before have left for them. And so now I run a charity and a social enterprise, and that's what I now do. So that's my third act. Who knows what the fourth will be?
I'm just beaming here. I got the goosebumps when you talked about giving back and taking on, a message to a legacy. You're right. We get at this stage of our lives, it really becomes that. We through all of the insanity, and I think we all got swept up in the media is just an awful tide to try to shovel against, and so we started doing one of the gals that I've been associated with. We did some podcasts on personal development stories. And it was fascinating that, after an hour of speaking to somebody who did as you have done many times in your life, hit the bottom and then turned around. And we found that there were 3 or 4 things that they all shared in common without our prompting. They all shared in common. Number one, they got rid of all the negative people. That was the first step. Once they did that, they went to work, which was the second step. They stopped feeling bad for themselves and just got productive. And the third thing is because of that old the crab trying to get out of the pail and all the other crabs trying to pull it back, they had to go their own path because people had all kinds of advice what they should do. But the fourth one, every single one talked about they didn't achieve happiness until they started doing for others. And I don't know if you want to jump on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think if you talk to most entrepreneurs, they will talk about the reason they do what they do is because they want to make a difference. They want to be more than wallpaper. They want to kind of be able to see the benefit of their work. And as a social entrepreneur, that's absolutely key. And we can earn money all the time if that's what we want to do, but that's not what true wealth is. True wealth is what's left when the money's gone.
Wow, beautifully done.
Yeah. True wealth is what's left when the money's gone. And so, you have to be able to define that. And when you've lost money, you know exactly what that is. So for me, my true wealth is my mindset. It's my resilience. It's my ability to get back up. Yeah. It's my passion. It's my tribe. So it's the people that are around me. It's my family. And it's my health, mental and physical. And it's so long as I have that, I have wealth. So for me, success is not metric at all. And I think if you talk to anybody that is in, the later stages of their life, if you still want to work and you still, want to be doing something, then unless it's got any meaning or purpose, it's not really going to motivate you. I mean, I felt very different when I was in my 20s. What I was driven by in my 20s was money. I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted the big house. I wanted the flash car. I wanted the status. And that's what I was doing, and I got it. But when I got it, it was like, oh, right. Now what? It kind of, faded a bit when I got it. And then I lost it many times as an entrepreneur. And so I then started to question, well, it's not really about this at all, is it? And I've been a personal development junkie since I was about 25. So for me, personal development is like my religion. It's the thing that's my core. It's the very central thing about me. It's like, and that's even changed, Tom, when I think about it. When I first was into personal development, it was all about, belief and success and achievement. Now it's more spiritual. It's much more spiritual. Yeah. It's much more focused on gratitude and living with an open heart and living with no judgment and living in the present moment, which I have to work at, because I have not done that all my life. I've always been projecting forward. And so kind of grounding myself in that present moment is a practiced thing for me. I have to meditate to get there every day, because I am one of these big planners, as most entrepreneurs are. It's like, right, what next? What next? What next? Instead of enjoying the now.
Let me just say, I see now why you get the accolades you do. You resonate from a very deep place. I mean, to listen to you, first of all, it's an extremely calming. It comes from a place of wisdom. I mean, you've really found your inner self, and you're sharing that with the world. And so kudos to you. I mean, we've had a lot of people on. Yeah, I mean, it just, how can you deny? I mean, it's a power. You have a power because you are connected to something deep. You want to talk about how you feel about that?
I'm connected to something deep. Yeah, I mean, I would say that as I have grown up, it's taken quite a while. I definitely think I'm guided. I would say I was guided in that people will say to me, here I am working with teenage girls, and they will say, oh, well, it's really obvious that you will be doing that, Jane, because you had such an awful time when you were a teenage girl, so it's really obvious that you would do that. Oh, it might be obvious to everybody else, but it's never been obvious to me. I never set out to do that. I never set out at like 16 saying, you know what, when I'm in my 40s, I am going to be working with other teenage girls because I am going to share my story, and that will help me get. I never thought that at all. My journey started off like, show me the money. But here I am, I'm in my 50s now, but from my 40s, that is what I've been doing. So I think I've been guided here, and I don't think I could have done it any earlier. I think I needed to have the life that I had. I think I needed that experience. I think I needed that story so that, when I work with young people, young girls, I get them and they get me. But I only realized that the first time I ever told my story in public. And the first time I ever did that was to a room of 6,500 14 to 16-year-olds.
Wow.
And I hadn't even planned to do it. And this is what I mean about being guided. I hadn't planned to do it. I'd been invited to speak at this conference, and the idea was there was 12 speakers at this conference, and they were all inspirational people who'd had some adversity in their youth and now were successful. And so they were proof that, whatever happens to you, you can move on. You can, put it behind you and become successful no matter what has happened to you in your life. And so the whole message of the conference was like, if it's possible for me, it's possible for you. It's just a question of how, because all our journeys are different. And that was the message. So these speakers were getting up talking about, well, I was a footballer, and I had an injury when I was 18, and it took my career away. And so I got into drugs, and then I ended up doing time in prison. But now I'm a successful X, Y, and Z. And so when I got to this conference, I found out I was the only woman on this platform. So it was me and 12 men. And
Wow.
the men were fantastic, don't get me wrong. There were some amazing guys, but there was a complete imbalance. And actually 60% of the room were girls.
Wow.
And so I had this message. I was going to do this really motivational speech about belief and resilience and all of these things. And as I walked up onto stage, I just ripped up my script. And I stood in front of this group, madness, and I said to them all, you know what? I am going to tell you my story. I think that is, that's what you need to hear. And I need you to know that I've never told anybody this in a public space before, but I think you deserve to hear who I am and why I'm here. And I told my story for the first time, and I found it very emotional because I'd never said it out loud. And they all found it incredibly emotional. And the girls literally woke up in this room. I mean, I could see them sitting up, thinking, oh my God, here's a woman. Oh my God, the woman, somebody that looks like us, talking to us. And it was an absolute baptism of fire for me, because when I came off that stage, I got mobbed by the girls. It was like being a rock star, Tom. It was like being a rock star. It's not happened since. I'm still waiting. And every time I tried to leave the room, somebody would come up to me and say, Jane, before you go, can you just come and talk to a girl on my table, Ellie? Because ever since you've been talking, she's been crying. And so something's been triggered. So we come and talk to her, and I go, yeah. So I go and talk to her, and so on. And then I'd go to leave again, and somebody else would come up to me and say, Jane, before you go, there's a girl on my table. It's exactly the same issues with her mum as you did. She came into the session this morning with a rucksack. She's packed. She wants to run away. She's going to run away after this seminar. Can you go and talk to her? Yeah, of course I can. So I'll go up and have a chat with her and give her a big hug and tell her it'll get better and so on and so forth. To cut a long story short, I spoke at 3 o'clock in this conference. I left the room at 10:30. So I spoke to so many different girls, and that was the kind of, that was the red flag for me for,
right.
That's what I need to be doing.
Right there. Yep.
That's what I need to be doing. That's my next act. Because the power of story is incredible. And I'd not worked that out until that moment. At that moment, I thought, oh, my God, this is what's going to get me to the next stage in my life. This is what's going to help me get rapport with those girls. To that point, I wouldn't imagine anybody that ever worked with me or that, worked in my team knew anything about my personal backstory, because I never told anybody. I didn't think it was relevant. I was just getting on with my life.
Well, you told it to me,
I did.
You told when you told me your life story, and I've shared it so many times with people, and it's the classic story, and and so on so many levels. I mean, stories. You're absolutely right. We're storytellers, and it's when you think about, I think. Humans don't understand the power story. We just jump into them, and we spend hours watching, episodes, and we go to theater and we go to movies, and without being hypnotized the whole time, not realizing how vital this is to our existence. And your story, just like I say, I share it. So you're right. Once you put that seed out there, what I'm trying to reach here is what I've discovered, and why I'm talking about deep, is that is the point, isn't it? That we come here with a mission, and it's already implanted, and our higher self, that guide that you're talking about, sooner or later shows up and says, okay, this is, and you're having fun, this is great, but this is what you really came here to do.
Yeah, and it arrives at the right time, because if that guide had arrived when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't have even recognized it. I wouldn't have recognized it, and it's only as as your wisdom grows, your higher self grows, that you then start to see the red flags around that, and you start to hear that intuition and that guide and that more spiritual side, and you start to think, getting quite a lot of red flags around this. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is what I should be doing. But a lot of people go through life and never ask that question. They never ask that question, so they never reach that potential. They never do what they're supposed to do or what they came here for, because they don't ask those questions. They don't listen. They switch off their intuition. They don't do any of the stuff that you need to do to get there. That's a real shame. But it doesn't. This journey doesn't happen to everybody. It only happens to the people that listen.
I'm I'm overpowered here. I'm quiet because we've done quite a few of these, and again, I just want to give you some feedback as to your power. I mean, you speak in a beautiful, methodic, and elevated way. Your language is poetry in many ways, and you, by telling and sharing your feelings and your story, you get to the truth, which is, it's funny because I can say it to people in one way and they may not hear my voice, but
Mm.
Yours is very convincing, and you're just speaking from a very comfortable, peaceful place that
Mm.
shares. And you're right. I get too excited about the fact that people don't listen, and
Yeah.
that they don't pay attention, and that nothing infuriates me more than a wasted life. At least what I
Mm.
call a wasted life.
Mm.
A
Mm.
life of learning, a life of unhappiness, a life of a constant searching, and yet not listening and paying attention. So
Mm. Mm.
I'm just telling you, I'm gonna I'm gonna push this podcast because your voice is just, I mean, and your inner voice and deep voice is really resonating right now.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm. Mm.
Rhonda Byrne just came out with The Greatest Secret, a
Yeah.
sequel to Secret, and I laughed because for 14 years I was kind of upset with the message in The Secret, because I found out, that there was something deeper than that. And so when she finally came out with this book, I laughed. I said she finally got it after 14 years. She got down to the real truth. That inner, that higher self, that we are more
Mm.
than these accomplishments that we do on I liked your term level, and so she got down to it. It was just we really are infinite beings, and
Mm.
we can do amazing things once we get in touch with that power.
Mm. Yeah, and some people don't want to go there because it scares them, or they don't believe it, or
Yep. Whoops. I hope I didn't lose you. Whoops. Are you still there, Jane?
think it's
Jane.
all.
Oh, yeah, good. You're there.
Yeah, I'm
Jane.
here. Can you?
Wow.
Yeah.
I lost you for a second. I think my computer shut down. Great.
All right. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you're absolutely right. And again, we come here with, with, I never wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and yet it got pushed in my face so many times I couldn't ignore it. In fact, divine things happened that put me on a stage, and it's funny. I got used to do imposter things for corporations, or to pretend to be an authority on something, and one day
Mhm.
I went and I thought I was just going to perform as a comedian, and instead I looked at the program, and it said Tom Hayes, futurist, and I'd be speaking about
Mm?
the future. And I
Oh
panicked
gosh.
because I hadn't prepared anything on that line, and I was speaking to a pretty highbrow group. They were bankers and investors, and so I got up and I laughed. I said, I'm supposed to be speaking about the future, but I said, but I can tell you this. I can speak from a personal point of view that the reason that I'm standing on this stage was simply because at one point, something happened to me that I had to pay attention to, and I had to make. So my future was determined by what decision I made at that time, which was to either ignore it, which could have been easily done, just listening to conventional wisdom and what everybody else thought I should be doing with my life, and would have got the approbations, or to take a chance and listen to this inner voice, which I know was telling me the truth, because once it was revealed to me, like what you've said so far, once it was revealed to me, I was like, yeah, that's it. That I've got to go down that road. So
Yeah.
I said, we're all faced with these paths, these crossroads, and they come to everybody's life. And do you listen or do you ignore? And you do have.
Well, you've got to have courage to listen, though, haven't you? You have to have courage to listen, because it's generally a change. It's generally a big change. It's a kind of complete change of landscape. So you have to have courage, and most people would take the easiest path, and that's not the path of courage. That's the path of complacency, and we'll just keep doing the same thing that we're doing, and just switching off and watching telly for 6 hours every night, and not having to make any decisions about anything, and let everybody else do that. I'll just go with the flow. And I love the way Tony Robbins talks about going with the flow. He's one of my gurus. And, I have lots of people that say to me, well, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm going to go with the flow. Particularly when I start talking about maybe setting some vision for your life. I think that might be a good idea. Not goals, but some kind of theme. some kind of plan. What's the next step? What do you want to do? Oh, no, I'm just going to go with the flow. And I always say to them, well, Tony Robbins' view of going with the flow is that if you just continue to go with the flow, you're eventually going to end up at a waterfall. And when you get to that waterfall, you're going to have to make some decisions pretty quick.
Right.
And when you make decisions in a crisis like that, they're generally not the best decisions because they're knee-jerk, they're immediate, you don't really think about it, you don't really have that bigger picture. So that's what happens when you go with the flow. Now, wouldn't it be better if you had some ideas and some, theme or some vision for your life? Because it's far better to plan that and have a strategy so that when you do hit the waterfall, you know exactly what to do because you were expecting the waterfall. And you know exactly what you want to do. And most people just don't do any of that. They go with the flow. The people that, have listened to that inner voice or have had the guide revealed to them and they've had the courage of their conviction, we're in a small percentage. We're less than, I'd say, 20% of the population.
Well, I had fallen into that conviction myself. Like you, and it's funny because you talked about adversity, and there is no good story without adversity. And, I lost my leg at 13 to a form of cancer that took, the kids got it, 95 died. So, and I tell people there was a blessing in that because immediately I wanted to get as normal, quote, I want to get back to normal. So I wanted to do the things all the other kids were doing. So that meant, I went to a bicycle. In fact, in conventional medicine and practice said that was impossible. I did it, and that's when I learned a lot. But I learned the rules of success. I had a goal, and I set plans to achieve that goal at a very early age when most people don't even find that ever. So I got fascinated with this concept of success, and I said, in my 50s or so, I said, wait a minute. I said, as much as I was trying to move people towards success, I said, only about 10% of us. There's only about 10%. I went from 20 to 10, and then I went to 5. And then after reading Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, he says that, it's bluntly, there's only 2% who are awake. And that's pretty frightening. Yeah, and he says,
well, it is.
To give a term to what you were just speaking about, he divides the world into drifters and non-drifters. And he asks the devil, who do you control? He says, well, I control the drifters. He says, the people who come through life and, as you described, go with the flow. And he said, well, who can't you reach? He said, I can't reach the non-drifters. They're the ones who are listening to their inner self and who have goals, plan, and vision, and a sense of altruism. So it's really pretty low, Jane. You're right. It's about 2% of us. And it's hard to live in this way. It's hard to live with this, to see this going on around us, especially today.
But then that's why we have to make sure, well, you either have a mission, like you obviously do with your podcast, that you're going to have some influence on that, and you're going to see if you can shift some people and inspire some people. So you make it your life's work to do that. Or you just surround yourself by people that are like you and stay in a different kind of bubble. But it's that again, you're still staying in a bubble, aren't you? So I'm not happy in the bubble.
Right.
I want to expand the bubble. So I want to get more people in the bubble. So, my third act is all about sharing my wisdom and supporting other people to get in that bubble with me. That's what I'm doing, and I'm trying to do it with girls that are very young, so that I get to them younger, so that they're not on my coaching couch at 35, telling me that they don't know, what value or purpose their life has, and they've got no confidence, and they don't think they're worthy of anything. I don't want them there at 35. I want them rocking and shining at 14, so that they take different decisions and they take a different journey because they know that they are worthy of so much more and that they're here for some purpose, and that they're amazing as they are, and that they don't need to look like Kim Kardashian, and that they don't need to be, subservient to boys. That they should be controlling their own life at that age, and when they get it at that age, well, that's life changing.
Yeah, exactly. We do have. I'm always fighting this thing. Why can't you just be quiet? Why do you have to go disturbing things?
Yeah. I'm very happy to be loud. I'm
Yeah.
happy to wear that badge. I'm happy to be loud. I wouldn't want to be quiet or small or insignificant. I want to play a part, and if that means I have to be loud, then that's exactly what I'll be.
Like I just said, finding kindred spirits. I get so much from these podcasts because we need that because there's so much negativity out there right now. And one of the reasons I wanted to get back to you is it was funny. I went in to have some work done on my prosthesis, and we were talking about COVID and the impact on the particular institution that I went to, and so. My prosthetist said to me, well, he says, our life is going pretty well. He says, well, our kids are still in school. They didn't miss that. And he says, my wife is busier than ever. And I said, well, what kind of work does she do? She says, she's the counselor for the Veterans Administration. I said, she's got to be busy. He says, wow, she's so busy that she's starting to think about her own private practice. And I said, doing what? It's teenage girls.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that there was an outpouring of a cry for help from teenage girls at this point. The crisis is really impacting them, which is one of my passions in terms of not just the girls, but teenagers in general, because in this country, we've got 25% of the teenagers that are contemplating suicide.
Yeah. I mean, it's just unbelievable, isn't it? The kind of the world that they're growing up in, the challenges and the stresses, and the landscape gets tougher, and their mental health just deteriorates. And we're watching it happen.
Right, and it's people like you, and I think I put myself in the same vein, that we've been given this mission to help them get away from the surface and get down deep and find out that there's a power within them that is intangible that will let them overcome any of this.
Yeah, but then they're also fighting families that don't get any of that as well. So,
exactly.
Whatever we kind of get across to them and, support them, they're then going back into families that are negative. And so they've got a double whammy, because they've then got to, in a way, have like a double life, or not share some of that because they know that their mum or their dad or both or one is going to say, well, that's a load of rubbish. You just need to sort yourself out and get on with it or whatever. I mean, I have so many conversations with girls where they've got this talent, but they're told that they'll never make any money with the talent. So I've come across artists and girls that want to go into media or acting or even comedy, and they're told, well, you'll never make a living at that. So you just need to get a proper job. Well, what's a proper job? What does that look like? And you're just stealing somebody's dreams. You're just stealing somebody's gifts, somebody's talents. And I'm generally the first person in their life that's given them permission to do that. So I'd be the person that says, well, do you know what, Gina, you're a fantastic artist. You need to do that. That's what you're here to do. And she'll go, yeah, but I'm not allowed to do that because Mum and Dad have told me I want to get a proper job. Well, get a proper job doing art, because that's what you're here to do. You're amazing. You're brilliant. So do that. And even the teachers will say, well, yeah, you need to have a fallback because, there aren't many people make a living out of that. And, and I'll give us so many examples of people that do make a living out of it. Art's a massive subject. It's not just, it's something that you can use in every single industry, and so I'll give, and then eventually she'll go, well, all right, yeah, maybe I should do that then. And so I'll work with her for a while, and then this girl in particular went off to art college, and she's now a fine artist. She's got her work in galleries all over the UK, and I was the first person in her life that gave her permission to do that.
Wonderful.
So all the people around her were telling her that, well, you don't want to do that.
Oh. It's the crabs in the pail, isn't it? You know, you can't.
Yeah,
You can't get out of the pail. We're
yeah,
stuck in the
yeah.
pail,
Who do you
and
think
that's
you are?
right. That's the big thing. They're miserable, and they don't. They're
And they want
making.
everybody else to be miserable with them. Yeah. I
Yeah.
tell a story about this in school, and the girls love it. I tell a story. Tell them this little story about, the animals in the farmyard, and they're all a bit bored. And so they decide to have a singing competition. And so the bluebird steps up as a competitor, and the rook steps up as a competitor, and they both go off to prepare, and all the animals get ready to listen. And first of all, the rook steps up onto the platform and starts singing, and it's just the worst melody ever. And everybody's putting their hooves or their paws or whatever they've got over their ears because the sound is just horrendous. And so the rook steps back, and then the bluebird steps forward. And the bluebird opens his beak, and the sound is just beautiful. And they're all literally in a trance. All the animals are in a trance, and they say, oh my God, that's absolutely amazing. And so the bluebird steps back. And then the pig who's been appointed the judge announces that the rook is the winner. And so the bluebird flies off to a corner and, has a bit of a moment. And one of the other animals comes up to him and says, what? There's no need to get upset. It was only a bit of a game. You don't need, you don't need to get upset about it. He said that, that you didn't win. And he says, the bluebird says, well, I'm not upset that I didn't win. I'm upset that I allowed myself to be judged by a pig. Yeah. Who are you allowing to judge you? Yeah? Who are you allowing to judge you?
Exactly.
Thought you'd like that. Yeah. Who are you allowing to judge you?
It's a critical time because the media. I just did a wonderful couple of podcasts with a brilliant guy, Brian Francis Culkin, who's written 15 books, and mostly lately on the technology and globalization and gentrification and the impact of the technology on the human condition. And it is so unlike all other times where it was just the family and your close people dragging you down, your teachers, etc. Now it's this constant bombardment from social media, technology, and throwing up the Kardashians, etc. So it's even more important that we speak out now.
We're losing our young people to this smart technology. We're losing them in a rapid way. I mean, I've been working with girls for a decade, 10 years, in my 11th year, and I've got to say that in the past 5 years, we've gone backwards. We've got some of the most incredibly depressing mental health stats, and we are losing girls and boys to that. It's not just social media, it's their smartphone. So their whole world happens on that phone. If it doesn't happen on that phone, it's not worthy of their attention. So they're spending upwards of 10 hours a day on that phone, whether it's on social media, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's talking to their friends through messaging, whether it's watching something on YouTube, whether it's accessing porn, which is what most of the boys do. They are on that piece of technology upwards of 10 hours a day. Now, what we've got to ask ourselves is, what are they not doing? Because they're doing that. So, they're losing 10, 12 hours a day. And one of the things they're not doing is sleeping because they're on that phone.
Right, Tony told
so they're
me about
losing
sleep deprivation.
Yeah. And in the UK, we are now prescribing sleeping pills to teenagers.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. We've got an increase, a 45% increase in prescriptions for sleeping pills for teenagers children as young as 10. So I find it so difficult to get my head round that we would do that, but that's what we're doing. And the second thing they're not doing when they're on that, because they're on that phone, is any physical activity. So they don't move. So they're either sat in a classroom or they're on the phone. So they're not moving. So like when we were young, we were out all the time, weren't we? We were doing stuff. We were out playing. We were on our bikes. We were playing tennis. We were, well, talking to myself here, but we were doing stuff. They don't do anything. So that what they lose is that physical activity, which is so important. They don't go outside. They don't do anything team driven. So they don't get that connection. They don't find out some of the things that they're good at because they're not doing anything other than sat on that with that smart technology. So that smart technology is robbing them of their emotional and physical development. It's robbing them. And we just sit by and let it happen.
Yeah, and that's, again, I get very vocal about this. I'd like to interject. I just recently moved from Boston, which had become totally gentrified, and I compare my journey there to being boiled like a frog. You can't boil a frog if you throw him in boiling water. He jumps out.
Yeah.
But if you put him in
slowly.
Yeah, slowly. And that was what was happening to me. I saw a very vibrant neighborhood. I mean, in fact, South Boston became the center of an amazing attention with the stories that came out of there, like Good Will Hunting and movies like The Departed, The Town.
Yeah.
People were fascinated, and it wasn't necessarily an all good story, but it was a true story. It was a story, a story of grit and gangsters and tough kids, and so it went from that, a place of character. And one of the first things that Brian pointed out, that when gentrification and technology happen, one of the first losses is character. We lose the characters. We lose the little lady who swept her sidewalk every day and talked to everybody. We lose the corner store proprietor and and the crazy politicians, whatever. And so you get this whitewashing, this toning down. That's what happened. That we just got invaded by the cognitive, Brian calls the cognitive worker, who comes there simply to work. And so we saw the death of the city because
community, isn't it? It's community. We see the death of community, don't we?
Death of family.
Everybody just everybody just has a job and no vested interest.
Right. Death of family, death of community. They don't want to give anything back. They don't want to hear anything about it. They don't understand the history of the place. They don't understand the people. Yeah. It's just a place to jog and walk their dog.
Yeah.
And work.
Yeah.
And and for me, and we're social animals. That's why we want to get up on stage. That's why we want to get out in front of the public. And to me, to go, I started to realize. People say, "What's wrong? Why can't you just? Why don't you just accept it?"
Yeah. No thanks.
We've all been in relationships where, at some point, the relationship turns sour, and you say, realize that you would rather be alone by yourself than alone with somebody. And this isolation, because one of the effects of all of this is isolation, isn't it? They may not feel isolated, but they are. And it was one thing to be able to go out in the street and at least have a conversation with someone. But when gentrification happened, I was alone with thousands of people. Nobody would talk to you because just their world is in that phone. So it becomes the loneliness and the isolation is magnified by this trend that we're seeing.
Yeah, and then you take silly risks, which is what we're also seeing. So when you're alone and you're isolated and you're lonely and you feel a sense of hopelessness and you're disconnected, then you go online for validation.
Yep.
You go online to find people to validate you who feel the same way as you do. And that's why we've got a growth in online grooming, because the groomers out there, the pedophiles, the nasty people are looking for those young people, and they find them very easily, and they're finding them very easily at the moment because their vulnerabilities, they're wearing it like a badge on social media. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of dangerous activity, because the girls take more risks because they're unsupervised, they're sat in their bedroom on their own, and they're looking for that validation, they're looking for that community, they're looking for that connection because they haven't got it. And that's when their behaviour becomes dangerous and risky, and that's why we're seeing some very nasty stats around grooming and bullying, and sexual imagery and explicit texts, and girls and boys involved in live streaming things that they shouldn't be live streaming, and doing stuff on webcams that they shouldn't be doing. And we can't keep it contained. We can't put it in the box.
Wow.
We can't. It's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense, doesn't it, really?
Oh,
Why wouldn't they?
I saw it coming when, I've been very vocal about what I saw with these easy exit from the concept of family. It was, and growing up in basically an Italian, I'm half Irish, half Italian, but the strong connections with the Italian side, and family is everything. And to see that, it horrified me to see where it was going, where you've got to go out for a job. Well, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But is anybody talking about the kids? Is anybody talking about children? Is anybody talking about how you're going to do this? And so I got into a lot of trouble because of my attitude about it, and people just would, well, that's the way it is, and you have to say. And so I finally came up with something that kind of stops everybody in their tracks. I said, that concept of the two-family income, wasn't that genius? I said, that was the salvation of America, wasn't it? Once we introduced that, all our problems went away. And look at the result. Everybody's happy. They have tons of spare time. There's plenty of money. I said, and the children have never been happier. And everybody looks at me and shakes their head and says, maybe that's the comedic event that I've been gifted with, to see the irony of all of it.
Yeah,
folks, that didn't even get us anywhere, did it?
But my worry is that when we look at that, we blame the women for that. A lot of what's going on at the moment, with this extreme misogyny, which is growing, and it's growing online, and that's now those groups of men are now grooming boys. So the boys are getting groomed to join these really far right extremist groups on YouTube and on the gaming technology. So there's all that going on as well. And my worry is that we're blaming the women for a lot of these things, because it's the women that also go out to work, and they should be at home looking after the kids, and that's their responsibility, and so on and so forth. And so we've got the wrong story there as well. We're not seeing that making a decision to have a family is a joint thing.
Exactly.
And there's a joint responsibility.
Exactly.
And we're not teaching our kids that. We don't teach them. We don't teach boys that. We teach girls that they should be the nurturers and the primary caregivers and all the rest of it. We don't teach boys anything like that. So we're still raising boys and girls to live in that very traditional 50s kind of scenario. But that's not what our world is now.
Exactly.
That's not the world we live in.
Well,
we've got a disconnect, haven't we?
Right. There should have been a dialogue between, okay, this is the time for men and women to get together and decide how are we going to do this? How are we going to create the new family? Because what is wrong? When I saw the whole thing happen, it goes, I'll stay home. I said,
me.
I would give me 8 hours a day with my children. 8 to 12 hours a day, and the ability in the meantime to use my creativity to do the things that I love. And they're I'm a nurturing father. I cherish time with my children, and now that they're grown, paid off, and I've got two of my own that are beautifully adjusted and beautiful lives, and a stepdaughter who I instilled the same things with, and You're right. We don't honor that process of parenting, do
No.
we?
No, we don't. And even as women, we raise boys to have wives.
Yep.
We're still repeating the same pattern. It drives me nuts when I see white mums kind of like nurturing boys to the point that they don't do a thing. They do everything for them. They wrap them in cotton wool. They do all the washing. The boy leaves home. He doesn't know how to cook. He doesn't know how to turn a washing machine on.
Yep.
He doesn't have. He's
Yep.
not self-sufficient in any way, and therefore, of
Yep.
course, he's going to look for a wife, and he's going to expect that wife to do all of that.
Yep.
And so you've got a disconnect straight away. So we need to raise boys differently, and unfortunately, there's a very bad part of society coming for those boys, coming for those boys' minds to turn them into misogynists right from the age of like 10, 11. So we've got to shift the whole dynamic, and because I've noticed in my time working in schools, I've been working in schools for 10 years, and I've noticed in the past 5 or 6 years that the balance of power in the schools has moved to the boys. Now, what I mean by that is that when you're growing up and you're discovering your identity around puberty, around 12 to 14, and the whole question of your sexual identity arrives and so on and so forth, girls used to be in control of that. Girls used to moderate boys' behavior. That's always been the way. So boys would show off to girls, and the girls would go, "For God's sake, Tom, what are you doing?" And Tom would go, yeah, right, sorry, yeah, and, try something else to get her attention. But that balance has shifted, and that's dangerous because girls are emotionally more developed than boys at that age. And so boys are just like this bursting energy of testosterone. And, girls are kind of 2 years ahead of them in terms of where they are emotionally. And so you've got this complete mismatch. So I'll give you an example of this. I was in a school before lockdown. I was doing a workshop with a group of 10 girls. And a boy walked in the room. And he didn't knock on the door. He didn't say, "Excuse me, can I just," whatever. He just walked in the room. And I went, "Excuse me, hello?" And he went, "I'm just going to the loo." And the loo was on the other side of the room we were in. And I went, "Yeah, fine, no worries." So off he goes. He comes back in the room, and he recognized one of the girls in the room. And he went up to her, and he was teasing her, saying, "Oh, Charlotte, what are you doing in here? What are you doing in here?" And she went, "Oh, get lost, Darren," like you never do. And he went, "What did you just say to me?" And she went, "Oh, get lost." And he, in front of everybody, this lad, we're 14 by the way, he kicked her off the stool that she was sat on. And then he just walked off. He did that in front of me and another coach and another 10 girls. And I was mortified. And I went to stop him. I went, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? And he turned around and he said to me, "What the effing hell's it got to do with you?" And he walked out of the room. So I got my coach to go. I said, "You need to follow him. I'll stay in the room.
Yes.
You need to follow him. You need to get him reported to the head teacher,"
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I picked the girl up from the floor, and I said, "You all right, Charlotte?" And she went, yeah, I'm fine." And she went, "Are you reporting him, miss?" I went, "Absolutely." She said, "Well, there's no point in doing that because that's how boys behave in the school. Nobody will do anything about it." I said, "Well, not on my watch. They won't."
Oh.
Yeah. So we've normalized that behavior. We've normalized it. So she wasn't shocked by it. We've normalized it. So then I stopped what I was doing and I had a discussion with these girls about violence and about when is it okay for somebody to hit you or treat you in that way. And not one of them thought that was a bad thing. Not one of them said, well, a boy, they all thought it was okay for a boy to hit them because they must have asked for it anyway. And I'm just shocked. I'm like, you know what? Nobody should ever hit you. Nobody has the right to harm you in any way. And, if a boy hits you, it doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter if you're his girlfriend. He is not supposed to do that. Yeah, but the thing is, miss, I might have caused something. I might have upset him. I don't care. I don't care. He still has not got the right to hit you. Yeah, but what if I've hit him? Well, then you shouldn't hit him. But then he still shouldn't hit you. Why are you hitting him? And this whole thing, that they all think that's just acceptable behaviour. This is why we've got a growth in domestic violence in the UK. Our domestic violence stats are going out the roof. And they're in younger couples. So, the fastest growth in domestic violence is relationships between 18 and 25. Because we just think that's normal. And the schools have made it normal because, it must happen so often that they've stopped doing anything about it. And it just absolutely breaks my heart that those girls grow up thinking that that's okay. When it's not. It's not okay.
Of course it's not okay.
So I've noticed this big shift. I've noticed a big shift that the power's moved. And, it shouldn't be in the boys or the girls' camp. It should be together. They should be equal. But we are a long way off equality. We are a long, long way off it. And we're going backwards in some areas, and it is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. It breaks my heart every single day. And the reason that I get more vocal and the more resistance I'm getting from people, why don't you just let it go? Why are you getting upset? And, again, I can't help it. I grew up, everything that you just described was not in my family. I grew up with a feminist father. And I say that from the sense that he, when dinner was done, he put on my mother's apron. Here's a tough construction worker. Put on my mother's apron, went over to the sink, and started washing the dishes. And I had to stand beside him with a dish towel and dry every single
Is he
dish.
the Italian or the Irish? Is he the Italian or the Irish in you?
He was Irish. She was Italian.
He's Irish. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he saw nothing threatening about wearing my mother's apron and or doing the dishes, or then I had to sweep the floor. So all of these things, when feminism became very vocal in the States, a lot of women were complaining about men not being able to do chores and to help the family, and I was shocked. What are you talking about? And then
that's normal for you, because that was normal for you.
Right, they weren't brought up like I was, and so then I started saying, well, wait a minute, ladies, who's bringing them up? I said, this is where God, that they...
Yeah, and it also depends on that relationship, though, doesn't it? Because when I look at my mum and dad, my mother was subservient to my father. My father ruled the house. He was the breadwinner. My mother didn't work. She wasn't allowed to work. Well, she did all the unpaid work of bringing up her kids and looking after the house, but she was not allowed to work. My father was a real alpha, a real misogynist. He went out to work. He earned the money. Her job was to bring up the kids and manage the house, and that was the deal. That was the contract. So, she didn't know better. That was the deal. That was, their relationship. So when as I was growing up, I used to do everything in the house, and my brother did nothing. Absolutely, he was like treated like a king. I used to set the table, I used to wash up, I used to help make the dinner, I used to do the ironing, the hoovering, I would clear up the pots. I would do everything, and my brother would do absolutely nothing. So that's how he was brought up. So, of course, when he starts dating, that's what he's looking for. He's looking for somebody like his mother, because that's how he was raised. I, on the other hand, I'm looking for the complete opposite. I want somebody that's like your dad. I'm not having this, because I don't want to be doing all the housework and everything. I want a career. I want to make something of my life. I want to do something. So there's no way I'm doing what my mum did. So I go off and I rebel against that. And I find somebody that's, Tony, who's very similar to you and your dad, who is a feminist, who, is believes in equality and thinks that my intellect and what I bring to the table is as important as what he does. So we do everything together. So I made a specific choice to go and look for that, and my brother made a specific choice to not to. So it's all about the families that we're raised in. It's all about the families that we're raised on. We either pass it on or we rebel. We repeat or we rebel. My brother repeated. I rebelled.
And isn't it? That's the thing that breaks my heart the most is the instead of holding that unit, that the family unit, as something to be revered and cultured and nurtured, it's laughed at today. In fact, we're seeing it in America. that there are certain groups that want to see the
Mhm.
destruction of the conventional unit, and
Mhm.
that's the war right now, isn't it? To me.
But what's the benefit of them doing that? What do they gain by doing that?
Well, you see,
These
because then
people.
they can push. Well, I'm going to just say it. It was Black Lives Matter. That was the. If you went to their website 6 months ago, the
Yeah.
first mission statement was was transgender and
Yeah.
to gay lives matter, etc., and the destruction of the concept of the nuclear family, and that the family
Mhm.
would be this village, whatever. And now, when I would say to my more liberal friends, go to that site and look at it, they said to me, it's not there. You lied. It wasn't there. And I went
Mhm.
back, I looked, and it wasn't there. And then all of a sudden, I searched on Google, where did it go? And the
Mhm.
term was scrubbed, because they realized it was coming back to haunt them. And that's the
Right.
nexus. That's the nexus of the crisis in America, is what's going on
Mm.
between conservatives and leftists. Is this
Mm.
The conservatives want to hold on to family,
Mhm.
and maybe not as the family that was the nurturing family, but at least they want to
Yeah.
hold on to that concept.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
this war to tear it down. That
Mm.
you're out of step, you're out of date, you don't understand, and you have to
So
accept power.
are you mean? Do you mean that? Do you mean that they're trying to tear it down because they have different sexual identities, or
Exactly.
because?
Well, first of all, I was going to
Yeah.
laugh because on your website you said gender. The word. Well, here in America, there's a movement that there is no gender. You see,
Right.
if
Okay. Okay.
they're even afraid to. Before, when they were afraid to ask you what your religion was, they're afraid to ask you
Yeah.
what your gender is. What do you
Right.
identify
Okay.
as?
Okay.
And
I don't think
oh,
we've got that yet. I don't think we. I think it's coming, but we're not there yet. We're not there
Jane,
yet at all.
one of the
Mm.
first things that Biden did was make it okay for a man who identifies himself as a woman, not that's had an operation, can enter a
Yeah.
woman's bathroom and he can play women's sports. I mean, this is the agenda, and this is what
That's very
I
damaging. That's very
tolerate.
damaging, isn't it?
Well, I because I lived with
It's dangerous.
I saw the influx of millennials, and like I said, I became the frog that was boiled, and I became more and more unhappy, not knowing why I was, but it was this isolation, and the attitudes of millennials. I saw what they're children. They're in their 40s and they're children,
Mm. Mm.
and
Mm.
so I started one day. My good friend, who was very wealthy, got into an accident, and he had to have round the clock nursing to administer his meds, and I would go in, and he'd say, "You better come up and check out the new nurse," because and I'd go in, and she'd be very beautiful, and she'd be in her 20s, and I'd sit down to talk while he was getting ready, and I noticed something. I stopped a young lady in the middle of the conversation, and I said, "Excuse me," I said, "You grew up in a family where you had dinner most nights." And she
Mm.
stopped, looked at me shocked. It was, how do you possibly know that? I said, because you can talk. I said, you
Yeah.
can look me in the eye. You can engage me. You watch my body language. I said, you react to it. I said, we're having a wonderful conversation. She says, you're right. She says, and what
Mm.
scares me is my friends can't. I've never been wrong. Never.
Mm.
And
Mm.
well, my suggestion, I feel so passionately about this, is okay, the United States of America, if you're going to have a child, why don't you do this? Sit down with that child for half an hour a night. I don't care if it's over a hot dog or a pizza, and engage that child in a conversation.
Mm.
And maybe,
Mm.
just maybe, we will produce the generation that we have produced.
Mm. Yeah. 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 And so, how do you? So you think when you think that all this gay rights and trans rights, you think do you think that that's the core issue here, or is there other things? Is there other things going on that's breaking the family?
Well, that is the more vocal. I mean, what I tried to explain,
Yeah.
People got upset when Trump showed up, and I noticed, and I never was a Trump fan, never. I thought he was a blowhard. He was arrogant. I hated every time he showed up. And I kept saying to myself, how does this jerk show up on national media? And so when it happened, and we had a choice between him and Hillary, and my friends started getting vocal on emails and things, and they said, and he's a jerk, he's bad. I said, wait. I said, we have to look at ourselves. America has to look at ourselves and say, how did we come to this? How did we?
How did it happen?
How did this happen? No, it's not our fault. It's him. It's them. I said, no. That's not.
Well, who voted for him?
What's that?
I said, who voted for him then? I mean, you must have. There must have been.
Well, this is what I tried to explain to them. I voted for him. The left pushed me so far. I voted for him because I said to them, what you don't understand is, I said the two coasts, the two affluent sections of the country, the people who have the best jobs and the most influence and the most power, are voicing their agenda, their moral agenda on the rest of the world that doesn't want to hear it. I said the Midwest is the place that lost all their jobs. They used to go to their factories and make an income and used to bring up their families. Now they go to either McDonald's or Walmart. There's no future for their kids. Now, on top of that, what you do is you take Bruce Jenner, who was an Olympic decathlon champion, who decides he wants to be trained. And that's fine. And he has that freedom and that right. But no, what do? You put him on the front cover of Vanity Fair, dressed as a woman, and then every night for months, we have to hear about it. I said, the Midwest does not want to hear about this.
No.
It's not their agenda, but you're going to force it on them every chance you get. And so they are going to react, and you have to have a little empathy for what they're, earlier in the day, and we could do tons of it. Mindset today is everything.
Yeah, true. Well,
are driving them nuts. What do they get up?
Yeah, and there are so many different. There are so many different ways that they can get into your head, isn't there, as well? And, like social media is a gift.
Yes.
It's a gift, isn't it, for them to influence. And, because we had a massive row over here about J.K. Rowling. Did you hear about that on Twitter?
No.
Well, J.K. Rowling's obviously the woman that wrote Harry Potter.
Yes.
She ended up getting embroiled in this debate about what a woman is. And she basically put on her Twitter, a woman is somebody that menstruates. Full stop. And she got absolutely crucified. She had to come off Twitter. She got people calling her a trans hater, and, she didn't know what she was talking about. And, I mean, it could have literally ruined her career if she wasn't who she is. It would have ruined her career. So she was told to come off Twitter. And, so we're starting to see that creep in over here.
Yes.
I don't think we're anywhere near where you are, but we're starting to see it creep in. And it is worrying because, the kind of gay rights, they have managed to get more rights in 10 years than women have got in 100.
Yes.
They are phenomenal campaigners.
Yes.
And everybody's frightened of going against them because you've got to be PC, you've got to be politically correct.
Exactly.
They don't feel the same way about women's rights. They don't feel the same way about women. But, so I've said it quite a few times to women, just look at what the gay community have achieved. And the problem is, the reason for that is that most of the gay community are men.
Right.
And, so they've got a very different way of campaigning. Women are much they're softer, they're quieter, they don't want to be violent, they don't want to be obstructive, they just want to ask for things. Whereas gay men will demand things. We want this and we want it now.
Absolutely.
And if we don't get that, then, we're going to do this. And so, I was asked to present an award at an inclusive event years ago, probably 5 years ago, and it was about diversity and inclusion, but every single award that was for the LGBT community was won by a gay man. So are there no gay women here? There's nobody else. It's just gay men.
Right.
Yeah, so they won everything. And nobody saw it. And it was me that sort of stepped back and went, this is not equal.
Yep, exactly.
This is not about diversity and inclusion. There's no diversity here. There's just gay men.
Right.
And I got looked at as though I was like mental.
Exactly. Well, we're cursed, Jane. We can see.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that'll be our next big thing, to be honest, because the thought of somebody being able to self-identify their gender. I mean, I don't have an issue if somebody. I believe that some people may be born into the wrong body. I can see that is a medical condition, and when they're old enough, i.e., when they've gone through puberty, if they want to make that decision to change their body, that's entirely their decision. But that's not really what we're talking about, is it?
No.
Exactly. And we're talking about giving them blockers so they don't go through puberty. And we're now finding out all sorts of things that doesn't work. It messes with their bone density and it stunts their growth. And what are we doing?
Right.
What are we doing?
Right. What are we doing, folks? A recent entertainment tonight was the show. He was the host, and he was asked the question, should a 3-year-old be able to determine their sexuality? And he said, no, I think that's ridiculous. To save his career, he had to retract that statement and apologize. That's how bad it's getting.
Oh, no. That is just so sad. I mean, we're just messing with so many people's lives. 3-year-old. I mean, I struggle with with giving 13-year-olds the permission to define their own gender.
Right.
I had a situation in a school, and this is, well, I don't get many of these situations, but I had a situation in a school about a year ago where a 14-year-old girl that I was mentoring was dating a 14-year-old boy who was actually a girl, but had self-identified as a boy, and had moved schools because he wanted to be known as a boy. And he didn't want anybody to know that he was actually a girl because he saw himself as a boy. And I just thought that's a time bomb waiting to go off. Because here we are, my girl is dating this boy, which he thinks he's a boy. He's identified as a boy. He's called Brian or whatever, and everybody knows him as a boy, but he's actually not a boy.
Yep.
He's a girl. And there's going to be a point when that's revealed. And then what's going to happen? I mean, she's going to be devastated. She thinks she's in love with a boy.
Right.
And it just opens up all these chasms. And I'm saying to the teachers, if this can't be right, if she wants to be identified as a boy, she needs to be honest with this girl.
Yes.
Because it's not fair, is it? It's not fair on so many people. That's not our decision. It's his decision. Well, it shouldn't be. I'm sorry, but they're 13, 14.
What about transparency?
Yeah. What about being honest and being real and being authentic? All these words that we talk about all the time when he's lying to her every day.
Right.
Lying to her all the time about his identity. If it's so important to her to be a him, then surely that should be a conversation that they have.
Exactly.
At the very beginning, so that he's not leading her down a path. Anyway, it did blow up. It blew up big time when she found out.
Well,
so she's not dating him anymore, but that's
it's
very
funny.
harmful.
You mentioned about the the real voice with the gay movement and being the men taking over. I worked in a place where a man had gone transgender, so it's now a woman. They had the operation, etc. And one of the female, I was working on one of the females, and she said, he may have the equipment. She may have the equipment. Oh no, he that's went from it. Yeah, he may have the equipment. She says, but in those meetings, he's still a man.
Yeah. No, I get that. I do. I absolutely get that. I absolutely get that. Which is why the fight for their rights is so strong because of that. And so that she's been brought up a man.
Right.
She was born biologically as a man. She
Right.
has male genes.
Right.
She has a male mindset. She was brought up with the privilege of being a man. So, yeah, she's always going to have She's got the best of both worlds, really, hasn't she?
Right. Exactly.
Best of both worlds.
And she is very attractive. So exactly. I have to tell.
How did we get talking about this, Tom? How did we get down this rabbit hole?
That's the beauty. Everybody tells me when I do these, I should have an outline and an agenda, and I should stick to. I go, no. I said it's so much more fun.
Yeah.
When it goes.
Just go down as many rabbit holes as you wish.
Yeah. I have a story about that same person. There was a Christmas party I was invited to, and that person was there. And she is about at least 6'2", 6'3", and she was dancing with. She was knowing that she was going to make the general manager of the place uncomfortable. She sought him out and made him dance with her. And I was married to my Russian wife at the time, and of course the whole gay thing was just a new world to her, because in Russia,
yeah, absolutely,
it's still
illegal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still homophobic, and she was fascinated. She said to me, she said, "Darling, that woman, very big woman, he makes that man dance with her." And I said, "Well, darling," I said, "that's might be." I said, "That looks like a woman. It is a woman now, but that was a man." And she just said to me, "You had a great way." Really? I said, "Yeah, it's really."
Oh dear! They're going to take over the world. They're going to take over the world.
She says, "How they do? How they do?" So I explained the operation to her, and she just looked at me and said, "Darling, what progress?" She saw it. What progress?
Brilliant.
Darling?
What progress? Yeah. Dear me, I don't know.
So, well, listen, you're a joy. This is the kind of thing that invigorates me not to lay down the sword, to pick up the sword, and if
pick it back up.
Be a noisemaker, challenge the insanity that's going on, and you're going to get into it, and I find that every time I do get into it, people say, "Don't engage them." No, every time I do, I learn something more. So what I started, why I loved your word mindset, because what I found was people coming to me wanting to pick fights over all these social issues I just think we're going to have catch up. And instead, it wants to be a political argument. And I said, there's something going on. And because you're a storyteller, I forget his name. I've read 2 of his books, but he was a #1 screenplay in Hollywood. And he wrote a book called Story, and then he wrote a book called Dialogue. And the book on dialogue is about 300 pages at least. And his contention is that dialogue happens on 3 levels. First of all, on the level that you and I are talking right now. Underneath that, there's another conversation of what we're going to say next, what we want to talk about, what we really want us saying, and that we may hold back in the conversation. And he says that on the 3rd level is the deep level that both people are unconscious of, that higher self level. And so I started saying, when people came to me with their agendas, I said, wait a minute, that's not what's going on here. There's a mindset below it.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is a victim mindset. How gays have made such progress in the UK. Well, they've got a victim. If you play the victim loud and long enough, it gets you with your results, right? And so I thought like to say, before people, I will engage them. I said, well, what's your mindset? And they said, excuse me? I said, do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Do you see the world as a platform in which you can, this wonderful place where you can come in and express yourself and create something beautiful? Or do you see it fixed? Do you see it that there's only so much and that there's really nothing else left to do? And how do you see yourself? You see yourself. What's your mindset? Are you empowered? Do you see yourself as somebody who can create something beautiful out of this platform? Or do you see yourself as a victim?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about,
right? Yeah, because victims have no power. Victims have absolutely no power to change anything, do they? You know, in fact, I've just done a vlog on that. You'll see that this week, next week, about taking responsibility. Take responsibility for your life. Nobody else is responsible for it. You make the decisions. You know, you reap what you sow. The decision and what you have in your life today is because of what you did yesterday, or last week, or last year, or a decade ago. You know, you created it. If you just keep blaming everybody else for it, then you're just giving them your power, and you're lost. You're screwed. There's nothing you can do. But if you take responsibility for your decisions, then you can change them. And that's what being empowered is. It's about being in control of the decisions you make. The opposite of that is being powerless, and that's what a victim is.
And that is the mindset. If I can really give you an inside track here, that is the mindset now. No, they will come back and they get violent about it. No, it's systemic. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the system. The system makes us. It's the system. And yet there are case after case of individuals breaking out of the system that they totally want to ignore. Those are only exceptions. Yeah. And so there's, how can you do? So I finally said, once we've established what your mindset is, I've determined I can't have a conversation with you because it will go nowhere.
Yeah, it will go nowhere. Yeah, it will just be depressing and negative for all of us and the listeners. And so, and we're not doing that. Yeah, we're not doing that.
And I think that more of us who are inspirational speakers have to start focusing on mindset. Because mindset will determine your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that fixed and growth is part of our process when we work with girls in schools. That's one of the first things we talk to them about.
Well, so, we are cursed for a million reasons. Number one, though we don't know it, we care. Deep down, we care, right? You care about girls. You care about society.
Absolutely do. I'm passionate about them. About them.
We care about family. We care about people being happy. We care. So we can't shut it off. It's our mission. It's our life's mission. And we meet each other, and we need to wake up the world and say, no, this is just to have your cause, and you want to maybe go the victim cause. We want to go the champion cause. You could be the champion.
Yeah. I mean, one of the key things that makes people happy is progress. People have to see that, that they are achieving things and that they are moving forward and that they're in a better place now than they were this time last year. And, that's what living's about. It's about progress. It's about getting better. It's about, seeking more. It's about finding out who you are and what you're here for. And you don't do that if you're a victim because you think it's everybody else's responsibility to do that, not yours.
Right.
So you're just going to sit in complacency.
Right. And that's the program now is government will take care of this. Government should take care of it. And, and it's not up to us. It's up to somebody else to take care of us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that I did a vlog on that today? It's really interesting that we're ending on the thing that I was actually just recording before I picked the phone up to you.
And you and I know it's no accident.
No, absolutely. What a great point to end on.
I am so it's starting to shut me down here. I can't tell you how grateful I am, how much of a light you are, how inspirational, how deep. You walk the talk. You went through it, and you are on the other end sharing this and hoping to wake up. And I hope that when we have this core community of people who want to do this, we will start to have a voice and try to
Mhm.
get the world back to a place of sanity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, change one life at a time. Hey, Tom. One life at a time.
Exactly. Jane, thank you, and say hi to your lovely husband.
Pleasure.
All
I
right,
will
let's
indeed, and we'll speak again.
maintain
Okay.
everyone.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Hey, boy, I think I did that just on time. Thank you so much for joining us. Wasn't she a delight? She's absolutely wonderful. And I just hope all of you have a blessed day and learn something and go out there and fight. Fight for what's right.